What's up, Rockstars, and welcome to my review of Avalonia by Farside Games. Thank you to my channel sponsor, Into the AM. Support the channel and get an awesome premium shirt I designed with them by using the link in the description below to purchase Eternal Guardian. From the lopsided crown, wolves, Norse throne, and more, this shirt is spectacular, and you can save 10% off when buying this fantastic shirt. Check it out and many other awesome shirts via the link down below. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that this channel is possible. If you appreciate the videos I make every single week for you guys, and if you give even $1 a month, there is a link in the description below for you guys. Thank you so much. With that out of the way, let's just go ahead and dive right in. Now, a quick synopsis of how to play this game. So you start with pretty much nothing except 6 basic units on the board. There are basic units, there are, I'll use one that's a little bit easier, armored units, there are attack units, and then you'll also see these artifact units on the board eventually. They're over here. And what you do is you choose 2 cards. You have different cards and they have attack, spawn, harvest, different things like that. Attack is pretty obvious. It allows you to attack somebody in the same zone as you. There is spawn, which is pretty obvious. You get to pay these little pure blood tokens here. You gain in various ways to spawn new units in that cost an amount. Now you can only spawn at your headquarters or anywhere you have 2 basic units. That's 1 point of spawn that you can put there for every 2 basic units. So as you grow your empire, you can spawn further out, of course. And then, of course, there's harvesting. Harvesting, you'll see these little pure blood traders, and these guys are going to be moving around the board at the end of each turn, and you can harvest the pure blood from them. Controlling them gives you victory points. They're very, very important. And then, of course, there's other things as well, like there's research where you get to actually get different cards to upgrade your cards. So you start out with a basic set that's unique to your faction, and then you can gather new ones as these get drawn out at the end of each turn. So you'll be gaining new cards, you'll be upgrading them, you'll be harvesting them. When you harvest them, you take out these little adult pure bloods, and then you get gems. The more gems you have, the more money, the more pure blood you produce over time. It's all very thematic. As you gain these adult pure bloods, they keep giving you pure blood, and so that kind of makes sense, and the researching kind of makes sense, and that you're able to do more things and stuff like that. At the very end of the round, you're going to do things like score points. You score 1 point for every human hive that you control, 2 points for every pure blood trader you control, and 3 points if you have an artifact unit controlling a pure blood trader. So something like this zone here where you have a human hive, a pure blood trader, and an artifact unit, that's a very, very desirable spot to have. However, these guys are going to move around all the time because afterwards they actually move 1 to 2 spaces across the board based off of different arrows on the map. So they are constantly shifting. I'll be talking more about that in the review, but they do not stay put unless you have somebody like one of my units that was just able to knock one down and keep them there. But they can still only do that once or twice the whole game. So nothing major there. Combat is deterministic. You do 1 attack to 2 attacks per unit, and each unit can take 1, except for armored, which can take 2 units. You assign the wounds yourself. So you essentially move your people in, and then that you say that's 6 points of damage you have to assign, and then the other person assigns that damage and gets rid of it. And then that's it. It doesn't go back and forth unless they choose another attack, or you move into a zone with somebody, in which case an attack automatically happens. Now, at the very, very end, what you're going to do is do a bid. And you're bidding for these artifact units. These guys can be as cheap as 1 if you win the bid at 1, or as expensive as however much you bid. You lose your bid, but you gain them. They're very strong. There are some scenarios to where the person with the most of those actually loses. So you want them to get more extra points because they do 2 attacks, and because they're often that you can maybe even get them cheaper than one of your units that costs like 4 or something like that. So they're very, very nice, and they go right onto your HQ, but you know, the pros and cons to that, of course, course. And at the very end, you place one of these baby tokens around King Arthur here. Now, what that signifies is a turn tracker. Essentially, when that fills up, he is summoned once all the pureblood babies are there, and then it's game over for everybody. And then whoever got the most victory points wins. Otherwise, it's whoever gets to 30 victory points. You do that, you shuffle the cards, and you move on. That's it. You'll be picking 2 attacks, or 2 cards each time. You'll be able to do both of the front one and only the bottom part of the third one. So you'll do 3 actions total. You can skip any ones you don't want to do. That's the basics of it. I'll be talking more in depth when I talk about specific things. But before I do that, I want to talk about my first pro, the one I typically do the most often, just because it's the first impression you get, and that's that the art and style of this game is fantastic. Obviously, that's a biased opinion. Some people like it, some people won't. I personally love it. I have nothing that looks like this at all. It seems like it's kind of like a Mad Max meets Fallout meets Cthulhu meets, King Arthur. Like, it's just wild. And it's like Mad Max, Fallout, Death Stranding all had a weird baby together, and it came out as weird as you imagine that sounds. Very, very cool. But the art is professionally done. It's very nicely done. It's nice, big art. I appreciate that. The style of the miniatures are just exquisite. They're very unique, very fantastic. I think they look really, really nice. So very much impressed with that. These cards are nice and big. This is important because you're going to be looking at other people's cards. I'll talk about that actually towards the end of the review, about 2/3 of the way through. I'll mention why that's important, but it's nice that you're able to see other people's cards on the table. Often we get this really small font, this really small text that's really hard to read, but I can read everybody's card, the cards that are available. I don't have to get up out of my chair to actually go read what's available. I can see it from there. Nobody had to get up when I played this. Every single time we were all sitting and all enjoying ourselves, and there was no break when it came to any of that, which was very nice. Now, with that, each faction has its own unique style. If you notice, so I mentioned the armored units here. These are the armored units for one faction. Let's see, these are the armored units for another faction. This is like a mechanized or armored up spiked hippo dewback thing being ridden by a guy. And then these people have this weird skull octopus thing going on. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Okay. I love this faction. Then you have like attack ones, right? This guy has like an attack jeep kind of thing, right? And then these people have like a freaking tank. And then of course these people have these weird grub maggot things with a helmet and like 6 tongues. I don't know. Okay. This faction's weird. But I love that. I love that each one is different. One will make you feel like you're scavenger mercenaries that have no home. One will make you feel like you're the semi-government in charge. One will make you feel like you're kind of mystical and weird and have these like dune worms that you're kind of like tamed and stuff like that. And I really appreciate that each one aesthetically looks different. It also means that even without the color, it's very easy to see whose units are whose. You know that this weird tentacle octopus skull gauge thing with eyeballs, like that's these people, and you know that's that, whether it was blue or not. The other faction colors, of course, just help. But yeah, very, very happy with the different factions. Okay, now I can't go any farther without mentioning the biggest thing in this game. What are you doing every single round? What is the main thing you're doing with this game? I'm interacting with this. What am I doing? That is picking these cards. These cards are fan-freaking-tastic. I love the card play in this game. Love it to death. This is so great. It is amazing that with nothing but a speed value, a word, a single word, a number, another word, a number, another word, a number, it can be so involved and so difficult to choose and what you want to do. But really what you're doing is, like I said, you're picking these cards, but the order of them matter because you have to do them from top to bottom. So the first card you pick, you will do both actions. You can skip one or both, but ideally you're doing actions you want to do. But sometimes the bottom one is so good, that's what you want to do, or the top one is, often that happened with me. The top one is fantastic. The bottom one is like, I don't really not want that one. And then the bottom card, you're only doing the bottom. So you want to only cover up something you don't really want to do or that's really helpful. Now, how can that come into play? Well, because the order of things doesn't matter. For instance, maybe I'm right here, right? And I want to harvest this. and then move and then attack. You can do that. You can harvest, move, and then attack. So you didn't waste the harvest. You moved in, and then you were able to attack from there and then attack somewhere else. Or maybe you wanted to move twice and then harvest. For instance, maybe you spawned here, you moved twice here, and then harvested that person way over there. That is really, really fun to do and figure out where to go. Movement even is like you can move some people here and some people here. It's movement per unit. And so if it's move 6, you get to move this guy here, and maybe you want to move this guy here. And you can go around the map and kind of move your units wherever you need to do, initiate different combats, and really kind of change the board in your turn. Or maybe you want to be able to research, so you get that first. Now, if you want to get that first, that means you got to get a quick one. If a nice harvest 10, this is a harvest 10 card comes in and it's early game, people want a whole bunch of like really good harvesting, so they get a whole bunch of money and be able to spawn a whole bunch of units much quicker than everybody else and bid higher than everybody else and do better. Well, then that's going to be highly sought after. Maybe this turn you do your research one and the lowest one possible, and you just kind of don't care about the other ones. Maybe that's the one killer thing. There is so much going on when you're looking at your cards, and you get more cards as you go. As you research, there's no hand limit here. You just get more and more cards. So at the end of the game, you have many more options to interact with things, and it's just it's nail biting trying to figure out what to do. I would love to move 5 units versus 3 units, but this card is so much slower, and this one has only an attack 2, or this one has an attack 4, so I could move 3 units and then attack in several different locations and do it quicker. Or maybe it's the last thing I'm doing, but I get to move 5, so I get to expand a little bit more, because I'd really like to also move 2 units into there and start spawning over there. And then I'm only doing 2 attacks though, so I'm just going to probably attack over here and call it done. Or maybe I don't need to attack at all. I could talk about this forever. It's fantastic. I love the order of operations here. I love the timing. I love the nuance with everything. I love wanting to expand my area, wanting to be able to attack my other opponents, wanting to be able to research, wanting to be able to harvest. Everything is fantastic. There is no bad turn. Everything you do is good. And like even attacking. When you attack, there is no attack back unless you're a faction that does attack back. And I really enjoy that. Every single thing you're doing, whether it's researching or moving or attacking, it feels good on your turn. Now, one thing I want to point out with that is that bottom card. That bottom card here, where you only do the bottom one, that's a nice twist, because you start looking at things a little bit differently, right? Because, for instance, you'll double up. Some cards, when you start research them, allow you to do 2 things at the top. But that's really great. So you can harvest 1, spawn 3, and then move 3. So you can get resources, then spawn afterwards. So now you have that, and then you can move. That's fantastic. But that bottom really, really matters, because perhaps you want this one. This one allows you to spawn 6 and move 3, which is great. But maybe you really want to harvest first. Spawn 6 is better than spawn 3. But you know what? If you do this, you get to move twice. So now you can research, harvest, get some more stuff, spawn, and then move across the board much faster. This bottom card and kind of the nuance there, I was very impressed with. It adds so much to it, because you're covering up one action. Essentially, you're having to decide what you don't want to do just as much as what you do want to do. Really did enjoy that. It makes you look at the cards a lot differently. I could pinpoint every single part of it. You guys can tell I really do like this part, but the bottom part of the card really threw things for a different loop. Because something like this, attack 2, harvest 10, this is pretty much a pure bottom card. The attack 2 at 600 speed is not that great. The harvest 10 is fantastic. It's the best card you can get for harvesting. And so this is very much a card where you're always going to be doing the bottom. So you don't care about the speed or anything else. You're just going to be doing that. So unless something tells you to do otherwise, in which case you're maybe wasting an attack. Really did enjoy that. Fantastic. Now, one thing I wanted to note about the speed. So I've kind of talked about this a few times. You lay down your card and each one has a speed. For instance, right here we have 893, we have 882, and we have 284 right here. That's because each faction has its own speed as well. I'll talk about factions in a little bit, but the cards themselves also have a speed. And well, I kind of talked about that briefly. I want to talk about the ramifications of that. After you start playing a little bit, what you realize maybe about halfway through your first game, maybe at the end of your first game, maybe at the start of your second game, you come to realize that really what you can pick is I go first or I go last. And because everybody flips over their cards, you can see what their options are. You can't see what they're going to do with it. If they're going to move, you don't know what they're going to move to, or who they're going to move, or attack, or what card they're going to research. But if you want to go first, you still see what everybody does. So maybe you want to go real first and you don't know exactly where you're going to spawn or where you're going to move. You just want to see what everybody else has. You can do that. Additionally, if you do a really late card, you're reacting to whatever they did in their turn. However, you know nobody is reacting to anything you do. Wherever you go, nothing else will happen. You are ending the round after you. And so you can sit there with your 893 harvest 2 spawns and really kind of let everybody else play their little game, and you're just sitting there, and then at the very end you get to do whatever the heck you want. If you get some move and attacks that are really late, you can do that at the very end. But sometimes maybe you want to go early, and because then, you know, maybe you don't know what they're picking, right? It's all secret, and then you flip it over. And so, you know, if you think they're going to go and spawn people and move into there, you can preemptively do an early move in and then attack them there, or spawn and then move even, or move and then spawn. So maybe you move, you attack them, and you spawn more units in that area, and suddenly their whole turn that they planned to spawn and then move is completely abrupted because they did a middle or late card to do that, and you did a quick speed attack. Now, none of that is in a whole bunch of wording on the cards. It's literally a number and 3 words and 3 other numbers. That's it. And so you get all of that interaction. But I really enjoyed seeing everybody else's cards, and that's why it's important to be able to read them. So I can see that they can move 3 and attack 3 from over here. I don't have to look far away. It helps that the table space is, like, this is a 3-player game. You could fit a 4th player in there, so you could play this whole game on this small table easily. I think that'd be totally fine. These are probably the biggest gripe of mine. While they look very pretty, they are quite large. They don't need to be this large. That could shrink a little bit. But besides that, it's just the board, pretty much edge to edge with a little bit of space on the bottom, just a tiny bit. And that's really it. There's not a whole lot of space needs for this game. There's not a million tokens to gather or anything like that. So it's really nice to be able to see there and see exactly what it is that they're going to do and make your decisions based off of what their options are. If you see that they can't move, then they're just going to spawn where they're spawning wherever they're at because they ain't moving. So you can freely go about and do your business and know that they're not going to move into you. Very, very nice. Now, that is one of my first negatives is at the beginning. While you have your own unique decks, you are bringing in little cash. In fact, your first turn you have none, and then you just have your 6 units there. So everybody pretty much starts the same, and that's you're going to want to move because nobody starts with this on there. So you're not going to harvest at all. Harvesting's useless to you the first move unless you can move in and then harvest, but which you might be able to do. But for the most part, you're wanting to research to get better cards so you can start building up that and movement. And that's mostly it, maybe some harvest, but you're not really attacking. And I'll talk about the map size in a little bit, but really the first 2 rounds, just about everybody's doing pretty much the same thing. As different as your faction is, you're all just trying to expand it a little bit, spawn new people in, get better cards, and build up, and then you really start doing some more customized things, which I can talk about with factions in just a short little while. But I was kind of bummed that at the start of each game I played, it was pretty much us all doing the exact same thing every single game session. Now, again, that does quickly kind of go by the wayside once you start expanding and get in people's faces and whatnot. And as these guys start moving and you get customized decks or whatever it is you're doing. But yeah, the first few rounds, the first 2 in particular, you're pretty much all doing the same thing regardless. Which brings me to another point that technically turn 1, everybody starts the exact same. While you do have a few unique cards, your state is the same. Everybody starts with the same amount of basic units in their headquarters. They have that. All of your basic unit, your armored unit, your advanced units all cost the exact same to spawn, so there's no real difference there. Nobody starts with stuff like, extra on their thing or whatever. It's all starting from square one, and then you customize. So picking your faction is important, but not the first round, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about how you are different, though, because these factions actually are different. Now, you have these different heroes. I'll go ahead and pick Oberon here. So each faction has a faction ability, and those faction abilities really do differentiate things and kind of leans you into one style or another. For instance, this faction ability is they can carry another unit. So every time you have a move 1 and you have a unit here, move 1, This is free. That's still move 1. So you can move extra units, and they are very good at expanding because of that. And if you get more move cards, there is almost no stopping you, because you can bring whole armies there, right? You get 3 of these heroes, you can bring 3 extra people. So a movement of 3 for you could be a movement of 6 for you. And that's not including any extra ones you have. You can bring a ton of units in if you keep your heroes together, or alternatively, you can spread out and keep extra units so that every 2, right, if you want to be able to spawn, that's a movement of 2, but you brought 3 because you have your other guy there too. You're a little bit stronger. And it's not just these basic units. They can bring the tank. They can bring the artifact unit if they want. They can bring the attack unit. They can bring all these different things. And so that's unique to them. This group, however, these yellow guys here, are a support faction. So anytime you're attacking, they get to attack with them. So if it's attack 3, well, it's really attack 4 for them. So that means that they are actually able to put more output out, put more combat out than you normally would. So anytime, if you don't attack them and kill their unit, when they do an attack, it's going to be 1 extra unit of yours dead pretty much. Every time that they attack. So that's unique. So they have all these different factions, and each one does different things. And I thought that was actually quite cool. That was nice to see. Additionally, another nice thing is these are these heroes. So let me kind of explain how this works. You have 3 of them. Now, in the final game, they get some special cards. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But you get 3 of them. You shuffle them however you want to do, and then you place them down. That's the spawn order. So you're going to spawn them in that order. That's super cool. It changes things up. It makes things different. You can pick this every single time, but sometimes you may not want to. For instance, the person that played these green factions, they have a person called Percival. What Percival does is when you summon him, he can essentially gain you income. In other words, you can get your pure blood tokens when you spawn him. Now, that's however many you would get that turn, which means the later in the game you bring him in, the more worthwhile that is, right? You can rake in a ton of extra cash that way. Whereas if you do it early on, you get an early start, but it's not like a big bump. So it's still always useful, but he gets better and better the later the game it is. However, he was on the top, which means she had to spawn him first. So then there was always that decision on, do I spawn him first or not? She ended up playing the entire game without spawning any of her heroes because she wanted to wait, and then she waited too long and then needed to focus on other things. So that changed her experience with that faction than if that guy was the last summon, which is almost the perfect you want, right? Where you can summon these other people in. So that's really cool that it changes that. Now, speaking of those summoned abilities, another positive. So they have an ability on summon. When you recruit them in, when you spawn them in, you can pay to do an ability. And some of them are quite good. For instance, hers fits into her faction. So hers is that she can immediately perform a move 2 action. That means you're essentially doing 4 things in your turn, not 3. And additionally, recall, these people carry. So a move 2 is really a move 3. So you can spawn her and then move 3 units with her. So her plus a unit, or guess what? If you move another hero, they get to carry another person. So you can spawn her and then move an entire army into the opposing thing just on her spawn. Now, to make it better, let's say you attack back. Oh, I want that zone. So you attack back. And I get to choose who I kill. Well, I'm going to choose to kill her. Do you want to know why? Because I can then summon her again and do that spawn again. Now, Percival, his was unique because you can only do that once in the whole game. But for the most part, you get to do that ability every time you bring them in. So it almost incentivizes you sometimes to have your units die on purpose. I might kill her off as many times as possible. Let me get her into combat, because every time she dies, I get to bring her back in and bring a whole army in. And then what are you going to do? Attack me back? Perfect. Now I'm going to bring her back and bring a whole army. Like, you get the most benefit by doing that multiple times. You almost want your hero units to die sometimes. Very cool. A nice twist on things. I liked that it's a on-spawn ability and not something you can just do every round or something like that. So you almost maybe don't want to attack a zone if you know they have a bad ability, whether it's a faction ability like they can attack back, or whether it's a ability that just lets them, do something stupid like that, because that was a lot of fun. So anyway, really liked the heroes, their random spawn, their abilities, all of it very, very nice. Each faction and playing them felt quite different because you are doing different things, and that's kind of nice. Okay, now on this one I have my notes up because I have a list of small nitpicks. I'm putting this as just a general negative, but obviously, this is a prototype and there is plenty of time to fix things and minor updates and all that, and I'm sure they are working very hard on making this game as great as they possibly can, like every company tries to do. So I will go ahead and provide that in this review. Some small nitpicks. The timer is a little covered up. So when you have this, okay, you have the little timer here. However, it's the 4 is in there, so you end up often covering it up, and you have to move it slightly to the left to see what it is if you don't remember it. So again, small nitpick, a UI thing, just shift that or put it like underneath, like on top of each other instead of to the side of each other, so it's the clock plus the number instead of the clock plus the number. I think that would solve the problem. Babies on here need a better slot. They easily fall over. Let's see. Okay. So when you get these artifact units, this is mine. This is my wife's. When we played this 2-player, they look the same. In fact, they're also green. At least the ones that they were colored here. These are our prime on color on resin miniatures. So yeah, I don't get sold on the colors. I have no idea how they're going to be in the final thing. But either way, we normally have these little bands to show what faction they are, and normally we have different units, which I said before, but the artifact units are the same and they look the same. So if suddenly you do that and now you're attacking it can get kind of confusing. Ideally, we have some bands to put on there. That might be the case in the final one. I don't know. But in the prototype that I received, I had nothing to put on there. It got a little confusing at times. There are a few other things. For instance, there would be nice to have a tray to hide the money. So when you go to, you take your money and you secretly bid, right? How much do I want that artifact unit? How much am I going to put towards it? I'll talk about bidding later. However, you're supposed to put it in your hand and then drop it all at once. But people can see my money right there. You know what I'm saying? Unless I hide all of my money underneath the table and then use both hands and hold one, but you can get quite a bit of money if you're saving up to get a big spawn. If you want to do a double spawn like that, I'm spawning 5 when I did that card. So, it'd be nice to have a tray, kind of like the bidding system in Rising Sun or, of many other games. It'd be nice to cover it up a little bit, right? To make sure that, or a bag to put it in or something like that, so I could keep secret how many I have in my hand versus how many I don't have in my hand. That'd be nice. Another nitpick is technically there are no other ways to gain victory points in this version of the game except area control. It's controlling hive mind, it's controlling these, that's it. There are mentioned in the rulebook of objectives and of certain scenarios where like these will actually foul you out so you can't win. So there might be some other play things that there. Who knows what the stretch goals are going to do or what the final game will bring us. And this prototype though, you can only get that. And while I do appreciate that focus, it is very singular. So it'd almost be nice if maybe there was a slight other thing you could do for that. And there might be. I saw a card that has score on it, but none of my cards use that, so I don't know how that works. But it'd be nice to maybe have some slight side ways to get a point or two, maybe even. My last nitpick is the tracker for victory points starts at 1, not 0. So everybody starts with 1 point in their victory points. Congratulations, you don't start at 0. It'd be nice if it started at 0, but I don't know. It just bothers me when a tracker goes to 1 instead of 0. Like, you always have 1, I guess. Okay, let's get some more nitpicks out of the way, some more negatives out of the way. I felt that the map was a little too big for 3 players. I told you about that the beginning, the first few rounds, and honestly, you're fairly safe. It is you have to kind of purposely try to move 2, because you can't, even if you have a move 2, you can't do move 1, move 2. You need both cards to say move to move a unit twice. And so that's to help prevent you from like, putting a move 2 and then a move 3 and being like 1, 2, just moving across the board. So move is move any 2 adjacent, and that's it. And then move is move any 2 adjacent, so you can move up to 2 zones, right? But for the most part, you're just kind of establishing yourself. So the first round to 3, maybe even round 4, you're not really interacting with the others. You could be perhaps a little aggressive if you wanted to, but like I said, for the most part, at least the first 2, you're just kind of building up stuff. You're not really ready to do much. These guys do half a damage each, and they're still 1 health, so they're not even good at fighting each other. They're good at spawn units, really, and maybe to take health points away, not really to dish them out. And each thing, besides them, costs 4s, and you're only making 3 per round. And so, like, it really is at least round 3 before you could really do anything. Typically almost 4, maybe even 5 before you really get into people's faces. So it did seem a little casual at first. It was kind of like everybody control their own little area. Okay, now fuss over that borderline. And that happened every time, as opposed to that. A lot of games either have different maps, or, like in Blood Rage, you remove parts of the map, either way the map size adjusts. And this one, I don't know if they do or not, because I believe they showed a 4-player one still on this map. I think 4 players, it would almost feel like Small World. So it's almost in between, right? Where it'd be almost too crowded with a 4th player, but I think I would prefer that over the more casual start to this, where it's just a little bit maybe too loose. I would have liked maybe 4 zones gone here, maybe just these corners here, and that would be enough to really like start people in there, perhaps. It would just make things a little bit more interesting sooner. Now, additionally, it could use more maps and setups. Like I said, there might be some scenarios and objectives. They do mention that in the rulebook, so I'm sure they have something planned. But as it stands now, you have this map and this setup for 3 players. And even if it's an alternate setup for 3 players, I think I need more than that. Alternate maps, I think, would help a lot, that just are a little bit different. But I will say that these guys change a lot. I'll be talking about them in a little bit on how that changes how you view the map later on in this review. So I'm not going to mention it now, but either way, more map variety would be very welcome from me. Alright, now I kind of briefly spoke about the bidding, but I gotta shout it out. Bidding is fun. Bidding's always fun. It's very interesting, especially when you want, it's very much kind of a cat and mouse thing, right? Because you can tell, especially because everything is known. You know exactly when you move in how much damage you're going to do. You don't know where they're going to assign it, but you know how much damage you're going to do. Or you know what their actions are. You may not know where they're going to move, but you know if they can move or not. There is a little mark on this card that I didn't mention yet. It's because it's for this point. And that's the movement of the Pure Blood traders. So these guys are going to move around the board either 1 to 2 spaces, and they will either follow the solid or the single or the double arrow. Now, which matters in places like this. The double will go there, single will go there, but you know that the entire round. So you can see where they're going to be next. So if you know that he's going to move here, then you know that, especially when they end up on the headquarters. So every now and then they're going to end up here. And you know they're going to want an artifact unit there because that's an extra victory point. So you know they're going to bid for it. Now the question is, how much do you put your own money on the line to make them bid higher? Because if they don't, if they know that you know that they want it, and they don't actually care for that victory point, but they would love for you to lose a whole bunch of money, they might bid 5, but you bid 6, but you don't know exactly how much to do. So you're always trying to decide, like, do I put in more? Do I put in less? Sometimes you get stuck with an artifact, I don't even necessarily want this, which again, it alludes to how some game modes that'll foul you out. Whoever has the most can't win. So you can also psych people into getting it, right? Oh, I bid 0, haha, you bid 1, guess what, you still got it. But that also gives them a nice unit for just 1, so that's also good for them and bad for them. So it's just, the bidding system's really fun, and I really do enjoy it and it's not some involved thing or anything like that. It's just taking money, and then whoever wins loses the money but gains the artifact unit. There might be other incentives too. The rulebook mentions that too. The rulebook alludes to a lot of things I wasn't able to play yet, but suffice it to say, I did enjoy that system. Now, I will say that sounds fun. I keep alluding to this is because the rulebook does, but I will put that as a positive because regardless of what they do, it just sounds enjoyable. It kind of reminds me of Mythic Battles Pantheon in a way where it's a certain kind of game, Mythic Battles Pantheon skirmish, this one area control. However, when you add scenarios and objectives and differences like that and little spins on it, in this scenario, things are flipped upside down and you actually don't want the hive minds, or maybe maybe the hive minds are moving in this scenario. Anytime you do stuff like that, or there's objectives now too, so you want to go to the objectives, not just the hive minds. Regardless of what it is or what the rules change do, it adds variety, it adds excitement, adds interest, and gets at least one extra play session, which is a win no matter what. But ideally, it adds multiple play sessions where I know I would have stopped playing this game, but there's this other scenario that does this neat little twist I want to do. So let's go and do that, and then we enjoy it. And I got an extra play session out of this expensive game I bought. Always a win, always support it. So it sounds great that they're planning on doing something like that. All right, now another note. This is not a negative because it's not even like a nitpick. It's just something I would desire. Anytime there is a purchasing decision like this, I always get excited at the idea of an ultra rare card. In other words, maybe in this deck, there's one or two cards that are like super nice, like clearly better, because I like the idea of people racing to get that, or, oh man, I just used my research card and I didn't get any more, so now I can't, or holding out on your research card, hoping the next one will be, and then you end up with a whole game and like, man, I waited the whole time for that, or I've been waiting and now's my chance, you play it, or ADU, I'm saying like, it's nice to get that kind of uniqueness. Now, there are some cool cards here. Like I said, you get that Harvest 10. That's really good, right? But you'll see that Harvest 10 multiple times. There are, I don't know exactly how many, maybe 8, 10, I don't know how many different cards are in here, but there are, they do repeat. Anyway, it'd be really nice to have that. Additionally, they do mention hero cards in the rulebook, but it would be nice if there were advanced faction cards. Like I said, you start with a faction deck, and they are unique, but they're very base. They're not the best cards. You will want to essentially get new cards in. It would be nice if there was maybe a way to pay or research into your own deck as well as the public deck, essentially. It'd be kind of like adding multiple stores almost, but one store is exclusively to you and helps further differentiate it. Maybe then you have to kind of, oh, it's all really good movement, but it doesn't give me any harvest at all, so I still need to kind of come in here for harvest, or maybe I just don't worry about it, and maybe there's an alternate way of getting stuff, or who knows. Anyway, it'd just be nice to have more options there. All right, let's wrap this up. I mentioned these a few times now, but I want to say that this single-handedly, I think, besides the cards, made me love this game because it's so easy to do, to move it around, but it does something that most don't do. Most of these area control games that I've played, at least, the board is static except for what people do. In other words, whatever my opponent does might change things. Oh, I'm going to expand here, but the map itself is fairly static, except if somebody decides to build something there, or expand over there, or leave their backside open, and I can go in there and, mess them up. That's what happened here. You notice these guys, very minimal expansion here. Well, guess what? Yeah, that's what happened, okay? That's very common in almost every area control game that I've played. What's different with this and what's exciting for this is while you will always go to these human hives that are static there, these guys are not static. And so there might be that thing where, oh, I just want to control this little area here, and that's my zone. In a lot of games, that's what you're going to do. You'll just build up your things, and you'll just try to get as much and try to mess up other people's, section that they have. Expand as much as you can, but that's it. But you'll get stuff like this, where suddenly I have the decision now, oh, do I want to go in there and grab that? And you might do that, but then he's going to move out of there. So now you don't even want that zone. It's an empty zone again. So it makes essentially moving targets that constantly make you a little bit more nomadic, if that makes sense. You're not just set in your zone. While you always have your headquarters that's there, the desirable spots in the map change. Anytime these guys come on a zone with the hive mind, suddenly that is the hot spot of the map. But that hot spot shifts throughout, not just off what you're doing, but based off what they're doing. And so everybody is doing things, but then reacting to them. And that interplay is so nice and so fun and such a simple system. I would love to see this actually adopted in other systems. I enjoyed it that much. I want more area control games where there's a dynamic kind of movement to that. The closest I could think recently for me would be something like Rising Sun with the battles and knowing the battles are moving. That's another kind of thing where, oh, we know the battle's going to come here. Well, everybody now comes there. Oh, the battle's over here. Okay, everybody comes over there. But this is a much more common thing, and movement is so much easier in this game that it's very fluid. And it just gave it a whole different feel. It really matched the theme too of these kind of nomadic people going through these wastelands, going after these traders and trying to, gather with them, and suddenly multiple factions show up at the trader and they're going to fight over the trader because they both want the goods. So in my head it's playing, on the game it's playing. It just fantastic. Really did enjoy them. All right, that brings me to my final 3 things. This game plays smooth. The rule book is not very long, and it answers almost every question I had, and it's a prototype rulebook. So there were 2 things I had really questions about, but other than that, this game just plays smooth. It's not cumbersome, it's not a lot of upkeep. All you're doing is discarding a card, flipping it over, moving that aside, boom, I've done the upkeep. Oh man, I gotta add a baby. Okay, let's add a baby. There, we added a baby. Okay, we got a bid. Okay, we take our coins, we drop them, we're done. You pick your cards, you flip them over, you do your 3 actions, you move on. It plays like butter. It really does. I was very impressed with that. The combat, you move in, you're saying, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attacks. They say, okay, I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm dead. There, combat's done. You move on. And that's everything. I'm saying, oh, I'm going to harvest. Okay, I'm going to take all 3 of these. That's 3 gems. I'm going to take my 3 gems, and it's a harvest 4, so I get 4 of these, and bam, I just did a harvest. That's it. It's that quick all the time. Oh, I want to spawn. All right, I'm going to pay 4, and I want to put him here. Done. That's it. That's every action is like that. It's so straightforward. There's a lot of nuance into it and a lot of thought put into it, but it's not because you're finicky with some little thing, or there's a 12-step process to nothing here. It's just everything is straightforward, and then there's just good options, and you have a trouble picking which good option to do, which means it's easy to learn. It's easy to teach. It's easy to set up. There are almost no components here. There's some gems. There's some babies with 1. There's some babies with 2. And then there's some like weird babies here. But literally, I set this up within minutes. It's just like one of the most time consuming things was everybody had to, take their cards, shuffle them, and put them there. There, you're done. I was so happy to have a game that fits on this smaller table, that is an area control game that I really enjoy playing, that I can just throw on the table. I can play this at a moment's notice. This is it. This is the game. This is every card in the game. This is the entire prototype I got. And I loved it. I love it. I was able to teach it within minutes. You guys saw at the beginning, I taught you just about every rule. There was a few things about the movement I waited until later, but that's it. It's just, you get it quick. It's not like you're going through half your first game not knowing, I don't really know how to score very well. It's like, no, you get the hive minds or you get these guys. If you get them with this, it's even better. Done. Loved it. I love the smooth gameplay. I love how easy this is to play, because that means I will play it more often, and gosh darn do I appreciate that. And that brings me to my final pro, and my final comment on this game, is that it was nuanced. It's not complex because it has 57 different mechanics at play at once. It's not complex because it has this and that and all these different tokens, and there's 14 different status ailments I have to worry about, and all these different skills and different manipulative things, and different things that change up the rules. So I gotta read every single card to know the rule. Instead, it just is a game that sets up, gives you a ton of great choices, and says, okay, pick 3. That is awesome. I love that. I don't feel bad at any moment for my cards. I don't feel bad at any moment for my actions. I'm just trying to pick the best of greatness. What's not to like about that? But, oh my gosh, you're looking at these cards. When you're looking at them, you're going like this, and you're like, oh yeah, that'd be nice. I really want to research. Okay, maybe I could do that, but then I really want to harvest, but all my harvest is on the top, so I would have to do the top. So I can't harvest and research now, but that has a harvest research. I really want that. So I think I'm going to research, but that means I'm not fighting here. And if I'm not, and you're just going through your head like that, and you're trying to decide, and oh, you know what? Maybe I can include a spawn in there. I could spawn, but that spawn will give me a move. So I can really, it's just, loved it. This was such an enjoyable experience. I know I'm talking about this a lot, but it's because I'm going to bring it back, I think, to the title I'm going to give this to. I would play this over Blood Rage any day. And I think that's saying something to me. This, to me, is Blood Rage++. Now, I know that there's some difference between a deck builder and a clan builder, which is kind of what Blood Rage is. But when it comes to a small map without a lot of components, right, I kind of view Blood Rage like that. Like, that's the easy to get to the table area control game. But the drafting can take a long time, and there's a Loki strategy, and each card gives you these little things to do, and you don't know how combat's going to work out like at all. And there's all these different things, and the recruit could take a while. This game just goes. I could play 2 sessions of this and just enjoy it completely. And I don't know. I really enjoyed my time with this, and I was surprised. I enjoyed my time this much with this. Not to diss anything, but Farsight is new, right? To the kind of the gaming community here. We're just now getting used to them. They haven't even delivered the Epic 7 that they were doing, and so I didn't really know what to expect. But they made a background. I mean, this is fantastic. This is a really enjoyable time. I can't wait to play it again. And anytime I'm playing a prototype after my review, I know it's good. I did that with Six Siege. I did that with Twisted Fables. I did that with Resident Evil. And now I'm going to do it with this one. And I think that's great. So Avalonia, for me at least, it's a huge recommend. I am excited to see what the final version is, where I get all the different factions, whatever the heck hero cards are, and all these objectives. I'm excited. So I'll be there on the Kickstarter along with any of you that decide to join me. And yeah. Can't wait to see you there. If you have any questions, of course, comment down below. If you appreciated this kind of more example-driven, detailed review, there is, of course, that subscribe button, or maybe even float $1 my way via Patreon. Either way, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys again very soon for more news, more unboxings, more reviews, as soon as I can. All right, take care, guys. Bye.